mean, I think one thing to keep in mind with both Alibaba and Tencent, which gave me pause, is these are mega caps. Okay, so these are companies worth hundreds of billions of dollars, right? And so anytime you buy a business which is hundreds of billions of dollars, how much runway is there, right? That always comes up. I mean, like Apple is like 3 trillion or whatever, but how many companies become trillion plus market cap? Or there's zero company that 5 trillion market cap, for example. So there's always an issue of runway that comes up in my mind, is how big can these things get? Whereas when I look at a business like Resas at 20 million market cap, we can see a very long runway, right? Because just liquidation value was 1 billion. So, so one thing to keep in mind is that we may do well. I mean, investors may do well with Tencent or with Alibaba, but your starting point at these companies is that they already have significant size and scale. And so you have to keep it in mind. Uh, but having said that, they have, I mean, Tencent has, um, uh, I mean, I think that the two engines they have in the company, one is their army of software engineers, which they are able to very nimbly move into different areas. And the return on invested capital you get, I mean, WeChat was created by probably 20 people. Okay. So if you think about, the revenues and profits that come out of WeChat versus maybe like, $10 million or something that went into it, it's just, it's like asymmetric to the power of asymmetric. So when we are making digital investments into these large scalable businesses where you have the intellectual property, the returns can be spectacular. So Tencent has done really well in the video game business. They dominate in the video game business globally. They dominate in messaging, and wherever they've put their attention, they've done really well. And of course, because they're in the software business, you cannot put much capital in the software business because there's only so many engineers you need to do whatever you want to do. And so they've been really good at taking the excess capital and building a second leg, which most companies don't have. Most companies do not have investing prowess. Um, and Tencent built incredible investing prowess amongst great private businesses that they could take a stake in and use that excess cash. And the returns they've generated on that portfolio has been spectacular. I think it's in the 30, 40 plus percent annualized return rate. It's a really spectacular return. So they get very high returns on invested capital when they hire software engineers. That's just off the charts. But even when they invest in a Meituan or JD.com or C or whoever else they're investing in globally, they've generated very high returns. So I think the combination of these two is incredible. Now, of course, one of the things that's come up for both Tencent and Alibaba is the Chinese government considers all of this Wild West behavior not acceptable, and they've been putting curbs on them. And so the question is, so businesses are very, I would say, most businesses are very fragile. If you start, shaking up the core kind of underlying premise or foundations of who they sell to and how they sell and how they market and how they get revenue, most businesses would have a very hard time with that, and they would be in trouble. So I think both Tencent and Alibaba need to understand this new landscape. And one of the problems with understanding the new landscape has been that it's been shifting. The CCP will come up with certain guidelines and changes, and then you think, okay, they're done. Then after 2 months, they come up with more guidelines and more changes. Then you think you're done, and then they keep going. And but for what I have seen of the behavior of Tencent and even Alibaba, they are adapting really well. So I think Tencent will shift its focus very heavily away from China. They've already had a global footprint, both on their video games and their investing. And so I think that footprint will become even more global, and they will de emphasize certain businesses in China. That's my best guess. Or they will look at businesses which are non-controversial, like the cloud business and so on. So that's what I expect would happen.